Do you understand your position? You have no one to rely on. Yet you act like this. That's... You can't listen to what your husband's mother says. Just keep quiet about it to my son. Got it?
My mother-in-law's tone suddenly changed, and she began to shout. The argument started when my mother-in-law suggested joining us on our honeymoon. I never expected it to turn out like this. But with no other options, I faced the day of the trip. I had no idea that things would turn out unexpectedly from here on. My name is Julie, and I am 30 years old. I got married 2 months ago and now live with my husband and mother-in-law. I met my husband Tyson at work 4 years ago, and after 3 years of dating, I accepted his proposal. We went to his mother's house to introduce ourselves. I visited my in-laws with a light heart. But it was a mistake. My mother-in-law wrinkled her forehead at the sight of me and never showed me a smile, even though she always had a happy expression when talking to her son. With a heavy heart, Tyson said something as we were leaving.
I'm sorry, Julie. My mom is really shy around people.
Really? I thought maybe she didn't like me very much.
No way. When I brought a male friend over in the past, she was the same way. She's just being shy, I'm sure.
Oh, I see. Well, that's a relief. I thought she hated me for a second.
No. That can't be. Of course she likes you. You're someone I chose.
Okay, if you say so. After hearing his words about his mother's shyness being the reason for her behavior, I felt a little lighter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just that when I remembered the way his mother looked at me. After we registered our marriage the following month, something unexpected happened to us. Huh? What do you mean? I asked, and Tyson looked troubled.
Mom contacted me yesterday and said she hasn't been feeling well lately. If you were okay with it, would you be willing to live with her for a while?
Is your mom sick?
No, I don't think so. But she is stubborn, so she might be hiding.
I see. That's a worry.
Yeah, it is. But I don't want to force it. I want to respect your feelings.
Perhaps my husband will prioritize my feelings first. If I say I don't want to live with his mother, I want to live with just the two of us, he should make it happen. But is that really okay? It seems that my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, and my mother-in-law is living alone in their family home. I understand the feeling of losing someone important because I also lost my parents during my college years. Thinking back to those lonely and vulnerable days when I lived alone still brings tears to my eyes. My mother-in-law is probably feeling the same way now, on top of not feeling well. After several days of consideration, I decided to live with my mother-in-law. When I told my decision to Tyson, he was surprised but lowered his head and thanked me with tears in his eyes. And so, we started our marriage life living with my mother-in-law. However, this decision would come back to haunt me later. Regret quickly followed. Moving in with my in-laws meant that my husband's workplace was farther away and my workplace was closer. As a result, my husband leaves the house early in the morning and I can leave later, creating a couple of hours of alone time with my mother-in-law. I was eating breakfast alone after seeing my husband off when my mother-in-law came to the living room and gave me a disdainful look. What kind of nerve do you have? Eating breakfast before your mother-in-law? I'm sorry, but I need to get ready for work. I made breakfast. It's just toast and fried eggs. But would you like some? As soon as I said that, my mother-in-law's face turned red as she suddenly raised her voice.
You didn't give Tyson such a shoddy breakfast, did you?
What? Yes, I did.
Unbelievable. You really are a failure.
A failure? I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my mother-in-law. I never expected to be spoken to like that. Just one day into our cohabitation. From that day on, my mother-in-law's verbal abuse only escalated. She would take any opportunity to hurl hurtful words at me when Tyson wasn't around.
You can't even do housework properly. You useless daughter-in-law. I don't know why Tyson chose her, when her looks and styles are not that great. Tyson must be pitied for having such a useless wife. There are countless other things that come to mind. Moreover, she moves around the house briskly without showing any signs of poor health. However, when my husband is at home, she occasionally showed signs of feeling chest pain, even though she spits out abuse so vivaciously when she is with me. I thought about consulting my husband several times, but I was too scared to do so. Even after 3 months of marriage, my relationship with my mother-in-law remains the same. Lately, I'm often threatened like this. You better not go telling Tyson anything unnecessary.
I don't have any intention of doing that.
You'll be the one to regret it. If you leave this house, you won't have anywhere to go, without any relatives.
Using the fact that I have no one to rely on, my mother-in-law is cornering me day by day. In the midst of such difficult days, one day, my husband and I suddenly decided to go on a honeymoon. Originally, it was planned immediately after the marriage, but we had decided not to until our work calmed down. Recently, the big project that my husband had been dealing with had been completed, so we decided to go on a trip at this timing. The destination was Mexico, which we had decided on beforehand.
Oh, finally you were going on your honeymoon, huh?
Yes, our work has settled down now.
That's good. What kind of place is the hotel, Julie? Oh, it looks lovely.
Well, it's a bit over budget, but it's a highly rated hotel, so we decided to go for it. Like this, my mother-in-law naturally talks to me in front of my husband. It is so natural that my husband wouldn't even think that we were in bad terms. One day, a few weeks before our honeymoon, my mother-in-law dropped the bombshell.
Julie, I just want to let you know, I'll be joining you on your honeymoon.
What? What are you talking about?
Oh, but keep it secret from Tyson. I want it to be a surprise.
Wait a minute. This is our honeymoon. It's kind of weird for you to come with us, don't you think? Before I could finish my sentence, my mother-in-law gave me a cold glare. Her icy stare made me shiver, and I couldn't say anything else.
Do you understand your position? You have no one to rely on anyway.
But this is just too...
Shut up. If you say anything else, I'll kick you out of this house. Just keep quiet from my son, okay?
Unable to argue back, we ended up going on our honeymoon with my mother-in-law. On the day, we left the house with her seeing off and headed to the airport. A few hours after we arrived, my mother-in-law sent a message asking where we were. I reluctantly told her where we were, and 20 minutes later, a taxi pulled up in front of us, and as she got out of the car, she hugged my husband with a smile.
Hey there! Did I surprise you? Huh, Mom? What are you doing here? I came to surprise you, Tyson. Julie invited me on this trip, and I thought it would be fun to come along. Hold on a second. What are you thinking, Mom? But Julie really wanted me to come, and she'll pay for everything.
My husband looks at me and and asks if it's true. Under the watchful eye of my mother-in-law, I can only nod silently. Seeing this, my mother-in-law smiles and speaks again, satisfied.
Let's meet at the resort we booked at 1 p.m. See ya.
After saying that, my mother-in-law hailed a taxi and went somewhere. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and the cheerful mood we had earlier disappears. My husband remained silent, looking down and lost in thought.
Tyson, Julie, what is all this? I can't believe you invited Mom on our honeymoon, even though you were a sweet person. Is there something else going on? Well, please tell me the truth. If you are struggling with something, I want to know.
Tyson, I'm torn between whether to tell him or not. If my mother-in-law finds out that I spoke out, it could end badly. As my mother-in-law said, I have nowhere to turn to. If I get kicked out of the house, it would be the worst outcome. My emotions are turmoil, and my thoughts are a jumbled mess. Tears start to well up in my eyes, and my husband gently hugs me and says in a voice that sounds like he's about to cry,
Julie, don't suffer alone. If something happens, I'll definitely help you. Tell me everything. I won't abandon you.
As all the pain I had felt until now overflowed, tears unconsciously fell from my eyes. My husband continued to gently pat my back, as if trying to soothe me. Once I had cried for a while and calmed down, I told him about the conflict I had with my mother-in-law until now. My husband's face turned bright red, and he trembled with anger.
That can't be true. That my mother did such a thing to you, Julie.
I didn't plan on telling you either, but I never expected her to come along on our honeymoon.
And she was trying to make you pay for the entire trip? She's unbelievable. Did you give her the money for the flight in advance too?
Yes. And she demanded $1,000 for the optional tour for herself.
What? Seriously?
In front of my surprised husband, I could only bow my head in embarrassment. Then he seemed to come up with something and smiled at me.
Julie, I have a good idea.
Huh? The plan he revealed to me was amazing. It may be small as revenge, but it would certainly trouble my mother-in-law. When I agreed to the plan, my husband immediately called our lodging.
Hello? We're scheduled for stay for 5 days starting today. Yes. We'd like to change the name of the reservation, please. Please keep the same price. Thank you.
After the conversation, my husband looked at me and said,
You finally smiled, Julie.
A few hours later, when I arrived at the resort facility, my mother-in-law was already there.
Tyson, I'm fine with staying in the same room as you guys.
My husband smiles and tells her,
I've arranged a special room for you, Mom. If you give your name, they'll show you to your room. Oh my! You went through all that trouble? I feel bad. It's okay. You have been taking care of Julie in various ways anyway. It's okay. After all, Julie is my lovely daughter. Let's check in for now. You must be tired from sightseeing, Mom.
Tyson gives his mother's name, and she leans forward to ask the receptionist,
Hey, is the suite room available?
We have only one available room today.
Then change it to the suite room.
Understood.
Is that okay?
She grins and looks at me, but I just smile back at her. We then head to the suite room we were shown to. As soon as we arrive, my mother-in-law dives into the bed and acts like a child. Well then, we're going to go now.
Huh? What are you talking about? The three of us are staying in the same room, right?
No, we're not. Tyson and I will be staying in a different room.
What?
My mother-in-law looked stunned and freezed in place. My husband threw a sharp remark at her.
You are going to pay for your own lodgings here. Got it? Wait a minute. What's going on? Tyson, how could you say that to your mother? What gives you the right to say that? You've been saying terrible things and making Julie suffer all this time. I would never do such a thing. Julie and I get along just fine every day. Don't be ridiculous. I heard everything from Judy. You've been bullying her and threatening her not to tell anyone. I'll never forgive you. Wait! Please don't say that to your mother.
My mother-in-law turned bright red and began to confront my husband. However, Tyson brushed off her arm and pulled me closer to him. When my mother-in-law saw this, she glared at me sharply and shouted,
It's all your fault.
If this had happened a little while ago, I would have been terrified and apologized profusely. But now, I have my husband beside me. So I took a deep breath, looked my mother-in-law straight in the eye, and said everything that had been bottled up inside me.
My fault? You're just trying to say it's my fault that your son hates you, aren't you? Don't be ridiculous. You brought this on yourself by doing stupid things and tormenting me. You know that everything you did has come back to haunt you, don't you? Shut up. Shut up. If you hadn't come to this house, you were just afraid of losing your son. That's all. You made my life a living hell for such a stupid reason. But I won't be a pushover for you anymore. I'm not even afraid of you anymore. After my retort, my mother-in-law trembled and tried to grab me. However, my husband stopped her and called the police. Soon, my husband and I left the place, leaving my mother-in-law behind, and moved to another hotel that my husband had reserved for us. We returned home from Mexico earlier than planned and immediately signed a lease for an apartment. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law enjoyed her stay in Mexico. When she checked out, she reluctantly paid with her card for the suite room, but her account was left empty. She was shocked by the exorbitant accommodation charges. When she returned home, the house was already empty. We received multiple phone calls from my mother-in-law, but we ignored them all. Since then, we haven't seen her. She doesn't know where we moved, so we won't be meeting her again. Now that she only has her pension to rely on, she'll have to deal with a lifestyle that's a far cry from what she was used to.
Tyson, thank you for believing me at that time.
What are you talking about? Of course I believe you. You're my family.
Yeah, you're right. Please always do for the rest of my life.
Likewise.
I can overcome any obstacle with this person by my side. I am reminded once again of my beloved husband, and we smile at each other.